Hello everyone. The Selfish Stream is actually, for once, starting on time today. So as you can see, I have finally fixed my chat integration. I also added in a nice little URL for the Discord, which if you would like to come join us there, that would be wonderful. You can talk during or outside of the streams, about the streams, or not about the streams. The restream bot is actually working properly now, as you might be able to tell from the overlay that you're seeing there. It is now grabbing messages from Discord and reposting them to the chat monitor that I can see. So hopefully we shouldn't have any repeats of last night where somebody is chatting to me for hours on end and I'm not even hearing about it. And yeah, so the overlay's fixed, the Discord bot is fixed, everything seems to be working well. I've also tested it out today and we have no crashing when I hit down. It only took a couple tries this time, but for once I was actually able to get those out of the way before starting, so we don't have to put up with testing that during the stream. And, you know, heaven willing, it'll actually continue to be working the entire evening. Knock on wood on that, I guess. So last time we had the Day of Disaster. It was seriously rough. We filled out the area around Lake Duchess, completely covered up Mount Buzzcut. We managed to expand all the way down through the Plateau, filled in Napa Valley. Part of it, not quite all. We still need to fill out a little bit of that before we come up the mountain, or up the... I guess it's a hill now, we sliced this off as well. We finally connected Lake Street up to this new developing area, which I am rather proud of. And now that we've got all these roads in place, we can start zoning it all out. And this is also going to be a good opportunity to put down more service buildings, so we'll probably want at least one more police station in this new area, possibly two, like one over hereabouts and one up hereabouts, to better cover the downtown Fairview region. For some reason we've got some people moving out of this downtown area. There's a lot of abandoned buildings here, I was noticing. And I'm not sure why that is yet. I'll have to check the overlays, the map overlays, to find out what is going on there. Once we've got all that zoned in properly, I think the next thing to do is to go for Lightning Ridge and this back corner up here. I don't think we need to cut too much of this mountain off, maybe a maximum of 3 layers, and I don't really want to even do that much. I kind of like it how it is. Probably want to cut off these top two, just because they're in the way a little bit. There's not really, can't really get roads through there to build stuff. But yeah, I don't think that there's enough going on there that it's worth like completely flattening this out. Although we could, actually, we have enough money regularly coming in that that's a viable option for the first time since we started this town. The Lightning Ridge Memorial needs a little bit of a touch-up just to get this weird little hole in the universe to go away. We'll probably want to do the same thing down here just to correct that. And in fact, we might want to do that very, very first, so that if it goes sour, then if it completely ruins the appearance of the ridge, then we still have the opportunity to go back and fix things with like going back to our save. Ah, that was actually really painless. I had to say it. Alright. Well, let's start the clock. We do have it on auto budget mode during terraforming, because Oh my. Okay, that'll do. That'll be fine for the memorial site. We will be putting a museum clear up here on top of the mountain. Let's also just shear that off, make it look a little nicer. We'll also want to cut off some of this. We're kind of doing all the terraforming that we're going to have done right now, just so that I can kind of be in this mode until it's done and then not do it anymore. But it doesn't look like there's too much more that we have to do before everything's pretty much where I'm happy with it until... Like, we may want to come in and clear off Buzzcut Peak. Right now I kind of like just leaving it as a mountain in the middle of town. But we may need to change that if we go for an Arco later. Just because we need higher population density to make all of that work. Okay, so that's 2 layers of that. Let's go for 3. Let's go for 3. That'll make better use of the space, I think. And I'm only really attached to Buzzcut Peak. I don't feel any specific need to keep this mountain around. And should we do this? Let's do this. Let's fill this in. If we're specifically making choices about how to use the space, then we'll want to do that, as opposed to making choices about what is most aesthetically pleasing, or most naturalistic, I guess. That's a good way to put it. Let's toss down another couple of water pumps. There's literally a water shortage right now. I think that's just about all the space we have for those. Let's just check around, see if there's anywhere else that makes sense. That makes sense. I wonder why there isn't a building here. Should zone that. No, let's not zone it. Let's do that, and then maybe later we'll remove some of this to make room for more. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's bulldoze those. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. We've got some pretty seriously negative commercial demand. And everything else. Industrial is just slightly in the negative, but not really. Well, maybe because we just built up massively in a really short time over here. Alright, I think it's time to turn auto budget off. Start actually paying attention to running the town again. And while we wait for that, I'm keeping it on turtle speed for now, because I need to get my tea brewing. Okay. Beg pardon if there's any strange noise. It's most probably the sound of my chair and my computer desk colliding. So they don't quite have the height that they're meant to. Alright, I mean, things actually are looking pretty darn good right now overall. Boo! Taxes! We will actually be lowering taxes a little bit. We'll give 1% to everything, and then an additional percent to commercial to help that recover a little. Get that in better shape. Let's take a look at the police power overlay, because that's been nothing but a thorn in our side for literally the whole game. Crime rate, about what you'd expect. Police power overlaps the crime rate and even exceeds it, because something about this just doesn't make any sense to me. Looks like Little Detroit probably wants its own police station, like right here. I'm probably going to want to, at some point, start bulldozing stuff to make room for more police services, because if we don't, I don't really see how we're going to fill those gaps, which is unfortunate, because it's already... Like, to me, this looks fine, pretty much. Like, maybe we might want one down here. There aren't really any problem spots that stand out. Massive negative rate of growth citywide, which is concerning and a bit confusing. I don't know what to think of that, because as far as I can tell, I'm not really doing anything to earn it. There's a bit of pollution, especially in Dutchess Valley. Again, not a surprise. It's kind of a suburb, I guess. Same with Little Detroit. Land values are not amazing. Firepower pretty much looks fine. I don't really see any issues with that. Let's see. Water supply, power supply, traffic. Ooh, that and that could do with some help, I think. Maybe we won't worry so much about that until we get enough money built up that we can start building subways. I think that's kind of the ultimate goal, is put some subways up. Also, I see somebody who's joined the stream. Hello, welcome. Boats, they say honk honk. So this is kind of our project area right now. I want to put this section of road in, finally. Hello, budget window, how are you today? Cut back on services. No. Alright, we're in good shape for the most part. And that all links up neatly as well, so that's good. I want to kind of try and stay away from too many like earthworks projects at this point. We've done basically everything that I would want. Just kind of pondering how far to space the blocks out on this area. some people do designs that have like really, really spread out blocks, just like long, long rows of roadway, kind of nothing between them, but I don't really care for those. Let's clear those out actually, because I changed my mind. I think I like it this way better. Yeah, I think this is in good shape. That's about how I want it to look. Now the zoning. First, dense residential, because that's literally the only thing in demand at the moment. Let's get the power run across here. That block needs it. I'll leave those connections for now and we'll look at those later. I just thought it was a little weird that some of this music is so, like, downbeat and sad. Still like the music quite well, don't get me wrong. I think it's lovely, but it's just a strange aesthetic choice. Ah, no. No, don't make it ugly. That's all done. Let's get this side done. Yeah, that seems good for now. Now, pipes. Yeah, this whole area needs to be filled in. Oof. Oh. Well, see, now I feel like an idiot. Oh. Pardon me. Whoops. Oh well. Apologies for switching so quickly between the two overlays. A little bit gross looking, but that's okay. Hopefully that isn't offensive to anyone's sensitivities. Kind of is offensive to mine, but since I'm the one running the show, we can ignore that for a minute. Okay. So let's get some more oceanside industrial. Sure what to do about this little area. We could put a road that curves over to this spot and catch all three, or all four tiles. I think that's what we'll probably want to do. That should meet the industrial demand we've got right now. At this point, at long last, we can actually afford to be somewhat wasteful with our building placements. I'm just gonna do this sort of preemptively because it's been pretty bad in our other recent developed areas. Toot. Where's the, there's the bus station right there. Kind of tempted to put one down here, even though that's kind of pointless. I believe all the rest are powered, so that should be fine. More industrial, says the city. Yeah, I don't think those two tiles are worth it. Over here might be another story.
Helicopter 1 reporting heavy traffic.
What the heck? I'm not supposed to be able to build on those. Let's see about maybe not having that problem. And that covers the whole area. Perfect. So we can do that. Now, let's find out what the heck is going on down there. What we're gonna do is make just a little bump there, a little bump there. That should put it back to normal. Okay, no more holes in the universe. None that I've seen lately, anyway. This whole area is going to be just a lovely little bit of residence. It's going to be gorgeous. All these high-class condos. I'm going to put some nice beachfront office buildings up over here. Couple of commercial zones. And probably one more residential here, and then we'll wait and see how this develops. Okay. So I think that's alright for now. That should spring up on its own. Now let's get the civic buildings going. We'll have some police right there across from the industrial zone. Keep the fire station a little bit closer to the center. Here. Here. Fine. You don't want it to go where I want it to go? Well, fine. I'll put it there then. Put a hospital up over... Oh, we're out of money. And we'll probably want to build both another school and another college. Wait, did we build another college last time? I think we did. We plopped it down over... Yeah, there it is. Nope, not that one. That one. Grade F. Alright. Put that there. So that area is going to be a little bit difficult to zone properly. So the school, the new school there. Maybe we want to put up another stadium? I mean, that's good for tourism, but I don't know that it does much else. Oh, another library, because those can't possibly hurt. Put that as close to downtown as we can manage, because I kind of want it there. Or Old Town, I should say. Oh. The signposts got washed away again. Old Twitchton Docks and Crime Alley. Okay, please stop erasing my signposts, hurricanes. I feel like this zone, this region needs a name, but I'm not sure what to call it. A little bit of beachfront also seems like it needs its own identity. I suppose that's something we'll probably need to look at later on once it's had a little bit more time to develop on its own. Meanwhile, let's actually just kick it up to high speed. Crime still be so high? Okay, 90% even after building a new fire station. Crazy. Kind of amazing how little difference it made building another one of these buildings, another set of these. I'm sure, given a little bit of thought, I could count up the averages that I'm playing with here and see where the cutoff point is for it not to make any difference. But wow, that is ridiculous. Didn't really help at all, did it? Twitchton blasts off! Yay! Hey, we get the Braun Llama Dome! Righto. So, despite the hardships and mounting civic problems of a big municipality, Twitchton's population has skyrocketed to 90,000 Sims. Bands played and denizens cheered to celebrate and memorialize the heroic municipality founders. A special tribute honored Mayor Cog the Cat, I can't even say my own name today, for the hard work and dedication that has made Twitchton a success. A commemorative Braun Llama Dome will soon tower over Twitchton, hovering over whatever spot the mayor deems worthy of such a fine and majestic structure. Let this llama dome serve to remind all denizens that grand aspirations are the easiest to see, beamed the mayor. So yeah, we got a new civic structure. Slow down time a little bit. Oh, another water shortage, really? Come on. Alright, well, the llama dome is pretty large. Let's plant it up here. That shouldn't destroy too much of the road. Yeah, should have seen that coming, I suppose. Why? What the heck happened? That's really all it took for you to work properly. Just the one spot, huh? Jeez. What's this mess? Alright, let's try the llama dome again. It is definitely not the, wow, I feel really dumb right now. I can't think of the name. I've even been there. Tower in Seattle. Space Needle, there we go. There we go. Just had a bit of a slow moment. 2,193 complaints. Well. Wow. Keeping services at parity with the rest of the city's growth is surprisingly difficult. At this point, I think we might just be, like, putting water pumps literally anywhere there's room. Also, I think the tax rate might be a little bit low. That seems to be where everything is as happy as 1079 at the moment. Alright. Water pumps. And that leaves room for another marina. Maybe two. No, no. There we go. More marinas, more marinas, more marinas. You know, it might actually be worth leveling this. Yikes. Oh, that's a little more than I wanted. I said just a little off the top! Oh, crap. Okay, well... I guess we get to just live with that mistake now. Crap. Go away. You're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be there. This gets dense industrial zoning. We gotta repower everything because it blew up the power lines. I hate those random explosion noises. They make me so nervous. Okay, so these should be feeding water into the system. Are they not for some reason? Let's see. Whoa! Okay, that's a lot of the city that doesn't have water. Okay, so it looks like it was just taking time to propagate. Right. Okay, so that's the water towers filled back up. And I may have forgotten to slow time back down again. Oof. Alright. Overground view, we need another fire station and at least one more police station, probably another school. Wow! We suddenly need a lot of things. Fire station, police station, a school up here by the Space Needle wannabe. I feel like that should be enough. Water shortage report. Are you kidding me? Are you joking? Do we just... What? Are the pumps not producing enough? Is that what the problem is? That should all be connected up properly, and that... I mean, that really ought to be enough. For goodness sake. So it looks like the shortage is over. It's a quarter of the way full. That one's entirely full. Jeez, it's... I don't quite understand what is causing it to run out so suddenly. I'm also getting a little nervous about power because we haven't built any more power stations in a while. Yeah, I guess let's just fill this out a little further. And then I guess we'll panic later, I suppose? We'll demolish that flat tile, because that's not supposed to be like that. You know what we might want to do actually is put water pumps up here, because this is all fresh water. So they'll get pretty much near the maximum output. College funding, as you wish. I'm going to build this in a little bit weirdly to make sure that all of these are connected up. Let's check the underground view to make sure that they actually have pipes. No, they don't. Okay, so we do have to actually build the pipes to connect these. And this is going to look super ugly.
Helicopter 1 reporting heavy traffic.
Okay, I have no idea if it's going to even recognize those as valid. It seems like it will, since these ones seem to be working okay. Yeah, it just takes a little while to update the system. Okay, not sure what's going on there, but whatever. Maybe it's because there's a building on top of it, it just registers that as, yes, this is a thing. So, alright. And for now I'm actually going to just leave everything at 100%, like fire and police, even though we've got what should be extra coverage on both of those services. Yeah. Alright. So that should be our power sorted out for the foreseeable future. Possibly that's enough to fill out the rest of the city, although I'd be surprised. Based on how much we've filled in, I'd say we're at maybe 50% maximum population density for the map. I mean, obviously it's going to be like a lot higher if we start serious terraforming. Like we've shaved off a few mountains, but we haven't like flattened the whole map, which would definitely change things a little bit. 236 weddings, 12,497 visitors, 1,685 llama sightings, 236 bungee jumps, and 826 complaints. Got a 72% approval rating, and where's City Hall gone? I forgot where I put it. Thought it was up in the Fairview district, but I seem to have misplaced it. There you are. 110 employees, no arcologies, a little bit of recreation, education, ports, airports, water, moderate power, health and safety, a high amount of residential with a moderate amount of commercial and industrial, and crap loads of road, which is about what I'd expect, honestly. Like that sounds right. Huh. Grade D+. I wonder what changes that. Like if there's anything specific that makes it... that makes that number move up or down. 200 police officers. That's a far cry from the 0 we made do with for 200 years. Toot toot. 34 bus stations, 136 buses, 6,000 passengers a day. Yeah, I mean, that seems fair, I suppose. 54 exhibits and 2,340 attendees of the museums in our town. Okay, well, that's neat. Let's do one tile short of that for now. We might come back through here with a road. I'm not sure. That would just be to fill in the extra space, I think. All of this can get filled up with just the roads that are in place now. But that's not quite what we want. We want... Nope, not a bus station. We want road. Specifically, that road. Then we want commerce. Here. No. No. Here. And here. Don't want this zone to come up here. I want to worry about that a little bit later. It's a little bit bright for my taste, but we do need to be able to see this stuff, so... Dance commerce. Fill that in as well, I think. Should start springing up on its own in a short while. Same deal with that. Okay, looks like we've got some buildings already coming in. Oh, that needs some power from the look of it. And let's check the pipes. Highways installed by Leningrad. Why? What? Twitched in Pulitzer? Horrible unemployment. I'm not really sure I understand what the point of this is. It's talking about highways, but we've had the highway innovation for a very long time. So I'm not really sure what it's trying to tell me. How mysterious. Okay. So I think we've got the basic building blocks of this area pretty much sorted out. Put down some light industrial just for the fun of it, right next to the police. And all of those tiles are both powered and watered as a result of their placement. So there isn't really anything keeping them from appearing. And you know what this here is? This right here is a puddle. No step in puddle. No step in puddle. Don't do it. Don't step in puddle. So I think our power and water woes are mostly sorted out right now. I don't think we've got anything major to worry about on those fronts. This Eau de Plateau region is building up rather nicely. It's coming up. It's coming up fast and clean, which is excellent. As usual, all of our smog belching factories are right on the coastline, so that the ocean can put up with our filth instead of us. Oh, I hate that noise. What? Why do I keep hearing it without any context? Nothing is getting destroyed. Why is there an explosion? I don't get it. Okay, well. It's finally time to take care of the other side of the airport. And to that end, we're actually going to boost commerce as much as we can manage by another 5x6 tile area. Power the whole thing at once. Should already be watered as well. I have got some hangars. You know, I'm actually sort of tempted to wipe out the entire thing and then come back to it. Like just bulldoze this whole area and see if we can develop it in a more sensible arrangement. Because it's grown in piecemeal. It started as nothing but, like, this runway here. So all of the buildings that came here were very small, or the 5x1 runways. Ah, there we go. It actually changed its own layout. Good. Good, 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 good. We've got a huge runway with the double directional tile. That's what we want. That's what we want to see. It's that kind of expanded, cool stuff. Yeah, 15x6 is a pretty decent size for this thing, actually. Yeah, you know what? I am gonna wipe it all out. I'm gonna blow it all up. But we're not going to de-zone anything yet. Actually, what I should have done is cut it off from power first. Oh, So we're going to take those roads out. Oh my gosh, stop. Stop! You have to have power, why are you still building? Road here, road here. Road out to there. How many tiles is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We want it to come out to here. And we'll just clear all this crap. Whoops. Commerce demands an airport. Well, Commerce is going to get the nicest gosh darn airport it has ever seen. Commerce. Alright, all hooked up. Let's get the piping put in for the new roads. And watch it all come to life. So there's some really cool save files that got distributed way back in the day, where people would actually pre-build the entire city. So they'd use Skirk, the resource editor, or just take out bonds to build every civic building needed in the entire city, just period, all of them. All the roads, all the power, zone everything, the entire map. And so when you'd unpause it on the first year, the entire city would just spring up. And it's all proportioned so that there's enough residential, enough commercial, enough industrial, so that they all have the perfect, like the theoretical perfect proportions. And then as a result, when you unpause it, you just get this massive metropolis that just springs up out of nowhere all at once. It's super weird. Coming in a little low there, aren't you, plane? Or you could just fall through the planet like your friend did, I guess. Goodbye. Twitched in air. Our very own aeronautical service. Why? Why do the planes cut a hole in reality? I don't understand this. It's so weird and creepy. Alright, so the airport's completely finished. I'm happy with where that's at right now. Pardon? Should I be able to put a road between these two tiles? Oh, no, I can't. Oof. Okay, well, that might be an issue. Fixed it. Fixed it again. I fixed it till it broke. I'm getting better at that sort of thing lately. Fix stuff till it breaks. We're actually going to flatten this out, because we want to use that space instead of just letting a stupid lake sit there. Although I admitted I was tempted to just name it the fishing hole instead. Oh, that's actually quite pretty, that little section there. It's nice music. Roar! Animal noises. Ah. Yeah, see, this looks better. This airport design looks a lot nicer. At least to me. It's still just as random as it was before, but it's not. It doesn't look like it all got built up in one tiny / huge row all at once. Looks like it actually serves a purpose now, and that there's like empty fields beside the runways instead of clusters of buildings. Right, pipes for the new roads. Actually going to run a water main right up the middle of this. Whoops, that's not roads. That's road. Can't see what I'm doing. That's actually enough to fill this whole area up. That's neat. Very tidy. Actually, I've just rethought this. Ear twitch. Which kind of sounds weird, but I don't care. Audio stream. What? Oh, crud. I'm so sorry. I didn't even realize I'm using Open Broadcaster in studio mode so I can see a preview and a live thing, and I very frequently forget which is which. I'm so sorry. Oh gosh. Here I thought everything was going great. Okay, well, I guess this VOD isn't going to be quite as good as I hoped. Well, what we did was we put up a crap load of water pumps, put up some more power. I've just been chugging along this entire time, completely cluelessly. Ah, crap. So we filled all this up. Crap ton of water pumps, as I said. Got a little bit more space along here. Just a little bit more space that we can build into on this area. We named something a puddle. What else? Oh yes, we got the Braun Llama Dome right here. We can find it. Yay! For some reason, the number of weddings here has gone down since I last checked it. Does that make sense? Man. feel very dumb for not checking that. Yeah, so those are the big accomplishments of the past hour. That, and we've fixed and finished air twitch. That's the end of the air. So this is now a 15 by 6 airport. There's a weird prevalence of empty space in it, but we're mostly okay. What else has happened? What else? I see another viewer has cropped up, so welcome, welcome. And if I may reiterate my apologies for screwing up the entire first hour. I feel not very clever, I'm afraid. So I'm just taking a quick look at my monitors here to see if there's anything else going on that I should know about. Oh, it's honestly pretty catastrophic. Alright, well... excuse me. Let's see, other stuff we did, whether particularly interesting or not. We flattened this out, we flattened out this area, cleaned up Lightning Ridge just a little bit to make sure that there's enough room down here. We cleared out a puddle down there as well. I don't think we've made any other major changes other than, again, just Eau de Plateau is very full now. Alright. Whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa. Crash. Air crash? Oh, it was an air crash. Oh no. Stop, stop, stop. Stop, stop, stop. Stop breaking my stuff. Halt, we've got you surrounded. Commerce desires airport. Crash cleans llama. A domestic jet containing a foreign brat, a pack llama, and 38 go-karts crashed into Greenback's bank, crushing all the patrons inside. Francis Weiss, the store's owner, was threatened at the loss. I've spent my whole life building this empire. Why me? Why not Mick? All 166 passengers on board were killed and a pack llama is missing. The bouncy mammal is probably suffering from nasty rashes and requests treatment right away. Mayor Cog the Cat urges all Twitchton inhabitants to begin proceedings for this proposal before anything else. Local celebrity Annette Harris was also seen at the scene saying, "This should really touch my career." That sounds really creepy. And the commercial district wants the airport back. I can't blame them. I want the airport back. Put the roads back in place. And everything else I think should come back on its own. Just make sure everything is repowered. And the reason that I'm putting power lines all over down here is because we're about to develop this. Well, I think the airport is taking this opportunity to improve itself a little. That's what it seems like, at least. Wow, what a mess. Also, that is a long runway. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 11 tiles long. Good gracious. Oops. It's a very, very long runway indeed. Right, well, that's thrown me off a little bit. What was I doing? We were going to put... Let's do light residential in the pit of despair down here. Because I don't really want any more air crashes.
The pit of despair!
And on that lovely note, there's people that live in that, you know? Okay. Stop deleting the world! Oh my gosh, stop! Why, planes? Why do you do this? Also, where is it going? Okay, bye. What? Okay, so we'll probably want to keep the zoning light for a certain distance around, but I'm not sure exactly how far we want to keep that going. So let's put up some light commercial here on the hillside. Want the road to go at least to there. Do we want to run it down there? Probably. Yeah, let's do that. We'll do the usual trick of keeping our industry close to the map edge and foist off all our pollution onto the neighbors. Yeah, that looks just about right. Looks sort of how I pictured it originally. Sort of. College funding, check. So that's our road placement, assuming that we focus specifically on this, but I'm not sure that's how we want to handle it. I think we'll do something a little bit more like this. No, actually I like that. close, but we'll live with it, I suppose. Oh wow. Maybe we want to stop down in the pit of despair. Toot toot. You know, buses are known for going toot toot. In that weird high pitch. The civic buildings here, since it's otherwise going to be difficult to manage to settle that all in. Just trying to figure out where isn't going to build properly without road help. Let's put light residential along here. I really feel like I should connect this road even though I don't really want to. It's a waste of tiles. In Salt Lake, we have an upper-class neighborhood called the Avenues. I think this is going to be basically the equivalent. There is going to be some industry next door, so maybe the land values won't be quite as high. Yay! A spontaneous parade in my honor, my favorite. Doesn't really have much of a function, but it does cue some of the cool music up. That should be the last this specific road tile covers. 1, 2, 3. And there's 3 there. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's right. And there's that. And that middle bit will not be covered until we put a road here. Not a bus. A road depot. Right there. Yep. We're gonna just like call that a little frontage road over to Schwinton. And there's a road to Avon. And another road to Schwinton. Basically just gonna run this road across here. so that we don't have to do it later. Should probably power and water all this, huh? Sorry, I'm not saying much, I'm just trying to count things out in my head while I do this. Trying to make sure that for redundancy's sake everything has just crap loads of power, etc. attached to it, so that we don't run into any issues with me forgetting a spot. Long pipe over there. Boy. Alright, so all the new roads should be watered. Not quite. Pit of Despair still needs water. Okay, so all that's done. That's good. We will zone dense because that's all we do. Zone dense industrial along the edges of the map. And we're actually not going to do any industrial over here because this entire area up top I want to be like nice stuff. So we'll maybe have some commercial, but it's going to mostly be residential. It's almost time to finally place that museum.
Helicopter 1 reporting heavy traffic.
But first, police, fire, a little bit of terrain leveling because I didn't count this out quite right. Ay, ay, ay. Devastating destruction as usual. Let's just fill some light industrial in along there, just for good measure. We'll actually be connecting that to the mains on both sides, just to basically confirm that everything is actually hooked up. So we don't have to make assumptions later on how to set it all up. That tile is going to be an issue to power, I think. Well, no, this should provide power for it, shouldn't it? I guess we'll see. If it doesn't build, then we can look at it again. Oh, how dare the guy that collects taxes suggest we should collect taxes? How dare he? How very, very dare he? Okay, we probably want another school, because that's about to cap out. And then we will get these roads sorted. That tile isn't going to get anything on it. And those 4 tiles aren't going to get anything. I think I can live with that. Alright, got our snazzy little bit of mountaintop homes going on up there. I really like the idea of this this winding road that just sort of hugs the cliffside all the way along. Light commerce, because we're gonna be weird today and put light commerce in a position like that. We are going to be putting dense residential all the way along this. Oh my goodness. That is just the wrongest road. I'm in a bit of a pickle with this. I'm not sure how to actually connect all these. Okay, so we can can level out one tile of this without breaking anything, I think. And that lets us form that connection, which lets us wipe out these two. Ah! Hello, budget. How are you? Should I change my mind? These are gonna be water pumps. Does this need power in order to work? Yes. Alright. In that case, I'm not sure we can have a water pump there since we have to have the road. The only way to get power to it is to do raised lines across this. Yeah, I guess let's. Wrong way.
I apologize to the stream.
Yeah?
Did you hear?
No. I sort of kind of heard you shouting.
I tripped over the dog
Oh.
in the dark hallway that she blends into.
Oh.
And shouted
Oh.
that I'm sure the stream picked up.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
The dog has been tripped over.
I apologize because the dog will not apologize.
Ah. I see.
She looked at me like, why did you do this to me? And I'm like, why did you lay right in the hallway? Like, completely in the way.
Well,
Yeah,
are you the other viewer, by the way?
I'm not.
Oh. One of those. Other viewer? Can you say hello? I have no idea who you are.
It might be Apollo because he always watches and never says anything.
Oh.
Well, not always, but he's, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that he was actually checking in. I saw that he followed me.
I don't know if he is or not.
Apollo, if that's you, hi.
If it's not,
Welcome.
hello, random person.
Okay. Yeah, well, have fun doing whatever it is you're doing. Okay.
This ends the disruption to your regular SimCity broadcast.
Thank you. Okay, so that was a thing. Blocked by another. Oh, it thinks that I want to put the. Wait, what? Info. Oh, hey. They actually. They actually apologize in this description for not being able to do underground cables. That's. I mean, that's kind of gutsy from a developer perspective, admitting that you couldn't get something to work. I mean, I see why they didn't add it. It would have been terrible. Okay, well, you know what? I don't think we can actually make use of this, so it's gonna go away, and we're gonna put a small park there instead. Amid the water pumps and the marina, there will be a tiny little park. City wants industrial, but I don't really have anywhere that I want to put industrial that it isn't already. Troublesome. We may need to bring it all the way down here to the end of Lightning Ridge. I think that'll be alright. we should probably be able to make that work. Those weren't even words, were they?
Helicopter 1 reporting heavy traffic.
Now we get to try and figure out how to connect these roads all the way up the freaking mountain. I'd like to keep the geography intact here. Well, okay, time to finally enact a plan I've had for a very long time. And build a bit of road all the way up that way. And at long last, the Memorial Museum. It's an interactive exhibit on power plants and how they violently explode every 50 years. I'm genuinely somewhat shocked that they thought that was a good idea.
Helicopter 1 reporting heavy traffic.
I have expected that power line to ask me if I wanted to build a connection. Just as well that I don't, then. Okay. So it's all attached. All of that. Let's do the piping. No, not the pumping, the piping. There you go. It's hard to tell which pipes are connected to what. Okay. So when I built that road, I think I thought this whole area was going to be a little bit more accessible. I don't know why I thought that. It was, in retrospect, sort of a dumb thing to do. But now that that's corrected, I think we should be good.
Helicopter 1 reporting heavy traffic.
Now, let's try that again. Actually going to pave over a little bit of the dock to make this work. Oh, oops. I think we have more dock tile, more seaport tile than we need. So I'm going to count on that and put some road up. It goes literally right through it. Crime Alley is just going to get its own long road there. We're not going to break the road up for this. Let's see. Power here. Whoops, no. No. There. Thank you. Don't you do anything but report heavy traffic. I know we have a traffic problem. Come on. Now, do that. And that. I think that should take care of our power situation up here for the foreseeable future. That should keep everything running. The geometry over here is a little bit awkward, so we're probably going to leave that unpowered, like leave this non-redundant for now. But we are going to leave the one giant power cable running all the way up the mountain, because I really like that as just sort of a historical feature. Let's clear that though, since we don't need it. A little seaside industrial park. Or parks. Wait, is some light zoning? Ah! Dense. We always do dense. And I hope... Crap. Alright. Clear those two construction sites and put the dense zoning in their place. While that's still all in a shambles, unbuilt, we're going to also toss down a police station, smack in the middle of it, and another fire station, which is going to live over here. Beachfront property! These spots already have power, which is very convenient. Okay. And there's a bunch of pipe that we need to put down. Just trying to figure out where the edges of this are going to be. What isn't the stretch of road with water main under it? Weird. Weird. These things that we sometimes find. Yeah, that looks good. We're actually just about done with the growth phase. Obviously there's still this area here, and then we may want to clear out Buzzcut Peak. But actually, we're pretty close to done with the core of the city. There's like little spots like that that we can still develop a little bit, but we're pretty close to done. At least insofar as we have filled all the space. Now getting an Arco is a whole separate thing. Which I'm not entirely sure whether or not I want to dive into that, since it is pretty intensive. It's basically wipe out anything that isn't dense, fill it in with dense, and then start flattening things out to make a larger dense area. Which, as you can imagine, is kind of rough when you're going for pretty. We need another hospital somewhere. And more cops, I'm sure. Can't place it on the edge of the map. Well, okay. In that case, I think we might just kind of be screwed. Well, that's all supposed to be dense, so I wonder why that's all small stuff. Odd. Alright, so we're going to have to deliberately boom our population a little bit soon. That needs to be a bus depot. Beepo. Toot toot. And then we'll want another bus depot along this. What do we call this? This road needs a name. Anybody out there have any ideas for a name for this road? I'm kind of thinking something like Frontage Road, but like I actually hate roads being named Frontage Road. So not that specifically, but something that sort of communicates a similar idea. I also want like Beachfront Road, but there's actually no beach next to it. You only actually find a beach on the other side of town. There isn't even really a beach there either, so I don't think that's a great name for it, but something that communicates a similar concept would be nice. We'll call it, nope. No. Ocean Avenue. Yes, bongo noises. So this little area over here is maturing rather nicely. And the city wants more commercial, so we'll put it over here. Or it will undoubtedly get destroyed in the next hurricane. But that's fine, don't tell them that. I really want to develop this, but I don't want to put anything except residential up there. It's probably going to demand it. Eventually. Okay. So what we may want to do coming up pretty soon here is lower taxes way, way, way down to encourage people to come into the city and hopefully boom our population up somewhat. College funding. Hospital funding. Right. Yeah, that's all dense zoned. I think it is just about time to start finding anything zoned light and wipe it out. So like this stuff up here we'll want to rezone, except for the stuff around the airport, because I am way too paranoid about plane crashes. Dense commercial zoning. Oh, wonder why we didn't connect these. I think we didn't have money at the time and I just sort of forgot to come back and do it. Yeah, I think some of these I was just being whimsical. It's a shame you can't rezone in place, so like wipe out the zoning without wiping out the building. I'm not sure how much it even will affect rezoning these, because because they can only build the small buildings here, even if it's zoned dense.
Helicopter 1 reporting heavy traffic.
Notice it's powered eventually. Let's see. I mean, this is really the biggest offender right here where we started out. So I've been doing pretty well about keeping everything dense zoned. So we'll come back to the old downtown momentarily. I want to just clean up any stragglers first, and then we'll go back to that. The heck was that? I saw it out of the corner of my eye. Something just fell right here and disappeared. Eesh. It's just a bit of a pain to sort of like collect up all the spots that you need to upgrade to dense zoning. It's all got to be done one at a time, right? And you'll also have to make sure not to wipe out anything infrastructure related so that they'll build themselves back up again afterwards. There. That was foolish. Alright, I suppose it's time to start on this industry down here. Pop. One thing that's a little bit frustrating is this is before the idea of like specific keys for everything is really especially popular. So there's a lot of like, click the button, now click the other button, now click the other button. It's still light. Why is that still light? Ah! It's easier to do this on pause, but I've been trying not to pause the game at all, really, if I can avoid it. Not sure it's entirely avoidable anymore, though. Ah, fine. Alright, game's paused. Let's wipe some stuff out. And let's actually turn on, yeah, that view. No, wait, that doesn't help. It only helps when we're actually doing the demolition, not while we are pondering what to demolish. There's like one light zoned house up here. It's now a dense zoned house. Sure, why not? honestly, this is really no different for the city than recovering from a major disaster, except that this time something good will intentionally come out of it. I wonder if there's actually any penalty to leaving rubble sitting around. There doesn't seem to be, as far as I've been able to determine. So everything that I've just destroyed should all be residential now. Shouldn't have any weird outliers, I don't think. Yeah, I think that all looks okay. Do the side of the lake. And I'm sorry for doing this on pause. I really didn't want to do anything cheaty like that. Just this is going to be a colossal pain when the buildings are trying to constantly build over whatever I've just dezoned. So that's all of that. Again, I don't want to change this stuff around too much because I'm freaked out about air crashes. I might change the stuff that's up on the ridge, especially as the arcology gets to be more of a priority for us. We'll zone this little spot. Never got around to. Same with this. Oh, there's some more. Shame road access is such a hard and fast requirement. There's a lot of places I could probably sneak houses into if they would just fit. Let's also do something about the traffic down here that I was thinking of doing earlier. Let's put the bus depot down.
Toot toot.
Yeah, it's looking increasingly like we're going to need to wipe out the memorial. Eventually, not right away. That's rezoned, although it did lose a power line somehow. Alright, so that looks better. Oh, missed a tile of industrial there. Alright. Oh, no, that's right next to the airport. I'm too nervous to change that. Too paranoid, can't do it now. Is that a traffic jam immediately outside of a bus stop? Goodness me. What has this town come to? Okay, so that all looks good. Anywhere else? Anywhere else? Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else that needs our help at the moment, so I think we're good to unpause and let all of that start rebuilding. And in fact, we're gonna speed it up a little bit because I don't want to wait. Getting there. Almost back. Yay, parade. Alright, and in 2225, I think we're finally just about getting to the point where the city has rebuilt after all of that rezoning. Startlingly destructive rezoning. And if you were wondering from way back when how all of these kids are going to get to school, well, this is how. We've got a dedicated roadway for it. And that's all finally linked up there now, so that's good. Let's get all of this new stuff zoned up. And powered up. And watered up. I honestly am a little surprised we haven't seen Captain Hero yet, or Captain Maxis, or whatever he's called, at this point. Because typically you'd see him flying around quite a bit earlier than this. just gonna plant down as much residential as we can and hope we can convince the Sims to move in. And with that, I actually think we're basically done with the city as far as, like, initial construction. So anything left from this point onwards is going to basically just be changing what we've already done. The only possible exception to that is Buzzcut Peak, which I like the idea of keeping, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to max out our population while it still exists. Those are the areas that we'll be able to build. I think there's like 2 or 3 tiles over here, but I'm not ready to nickel and dime quite that hard yet. Always with the random explosions, why? Why does that happen? It's really upsetting. It's also really loud. You know, we can actually just about afford is it's like fusion power, whatever the best power is. Can basically put down 2 of those now if we want. Yeah, fusion, 2,500 megawatts, 40,000. 2,500 megawatts, what is that compared to our current generation? 3,500. Wow. So even a fusion power plant can't fully replace this massive hydroelectric blob we've got over in the corner here. I said right at the beginning, hydro is broken as crap, and this is why. It's almost tempting just to put down like a couple of microwave plants. Not even for really any real reason, but just to wait until one of them blows up. Or laser beams the city or whatever happens to them. So I think, assuming that I'm correct in my understanding of how it works, because I've never actually seen it myself, yeah, apparently what can happen is that like a giant laser beam just slices through your city, which is pretty cool, all told. Buzzcut Heights. Man, other than just a couple of traffic issues, I think our city's basically under control. Yeah, the hydroelectric agenda. Yeah. It's conspicuous. It's the kind of thing, like, you think they surely must have tested this and realized how broken this is, but honestly, I'm not sure they did. Too many roads. Too many roads. How can there be too many roads when every road tile is servicing something? I suppose he thinks we have too much city while we're at it. No, it is true that like roads like this are basically unneeded, but I still want them. Oh wow, I thought we could get by with only one bus station over here. Whoops. Toot toot. And that's why you rezone on pause. Oh yes, this was actually just me being whimsical. We're actually going to cut off this area from power on both sides. We'll keep them from coming back until I'm ready. That should be fine. Let's see what how our population is doing. 113,000 people. I feel insulted. Avon and Schwinton are both bigger. We're still outpacing Harpersville, though. SimNation is over 1 billion people. Seems legit. Always with the explosions! Why? Why explosions? Why? Why are there 2 of these right next to each other? That gets to be commercial, which is in serious demand. I genuinely do wonder if we're actually going to make any progress at this stage. Until and unless we start rezoning. Or, you know, again, knock down a mountain. But I really don't want to do that. I like my mountain. I mean, I suppose we could always extend out into the ocean. I feel like that's a terrible idea, though. Okay, why are these all abandoned? And what can we do to fix that? Are there pollution issues, or... Stop. Stop with that. No traffic problems, no power problems, no water problems. Very undense. No crime at all. Plenty of police coverage. No pollution. High land value. Fire coverage. I do not understand. What do you want from me? Right, well, time to lower the residential tax rate and increase that of commercial. Industrial is just about right. That hasn't made any serious booms or busts lately. It's been pretty much consistent at none, no demand. And that's going to be a bus stop. I'm genuinely at a loss. I don't understand what the problem with that area is. Do I need to lower the taxes further? By the way, it's getting relatively close to the end of the stream, so I'm going to announce now that the plan is that at the end of the stream, or a little bit before, let's say 9:45, what we're going to do is play around with turning off funding for things. And just see if we can run our city into the ground without actually destroying it. It's a couple of days, yeah, I think end of last week, we destroyed the city pretty thoroughly. But we're going to try, for example, going without any police coverage at all. 6% residential tax rate. You need to live here, people, please. I really don't understand what the problem is. Because there's nothing negative about that area. So we're going to switch into an overlay, specifically this one. Why? Why? Why is that happening? Why is it just negative rate of growth? Workforce percentage 49. Plenty of health, plenty of education, so that's all fine. I don't really feel I need to change any of this. This is all looking good. Over the last century, we had a massive unemployment crisis, and I'm not really sure when that happened or why. All those water spikes, nothing terribly surprising there. I mean, we don't have any problems. There just isn't anything wrong, but we've still got all of this massive negative growth everywhere. You know what we're going to do is lower residential taxes even further. I'm going to drop it all the way down to 2%. Wow, we can actually lose money that way. No, we're doing 3% because we want to still be making money. And then I'm going to turn on auto budget and just see what happens to the population. Growing slightly. Wow, it's really just static at this point. Why? Twitched and booming, allegedly. Finally. Finally. Okay. Twitched and booming, allegedly. Twitchton knows no limits. The town's population has ballooned to over 120,000. Twitchton's sprawling proliferation exemplifies Mayor Cogthecat's brilliant planning. The mayor has been tending the municipality's demands from day 8. It's when did we start this? We started on Wednesday, so it's actually day 6. But sure, we'll pretend. Like all good cities this size, Twitchton is now in a position to consider adding arcologies, those majestic cities within a community that loom on the horizon promising the sweet life. The grandiose superstructure, adorned with all the amenities imaginable, will be added to Twitchton's skyline upon the mayor's determination. And people are protesting, I guess. Alright. Turn on auto budget back off again. We can get a couple of Twitchton booming slowly. Okay. What newspaper do we like? We had the Courier, the Chronicle, the Herald. What's the Journal look like? It's basically the same. The Times. Subway thrashed. Yeah, we might want to put a subway in eventually. Let's deal with this. Yeah, let's go with the Picayune. All right, now arcologies. They are big, and they are expensive, and they are super cool. And as you can see, that's how much population they store in each one. The Plymouth Arco is solid as a rock, or so claims Plymouth Arcologies Incorporated. It is known that they have stood through several earthquakes, notably in the Neo-Republic of Mexico and the Taiwan Co-Prosperity region. Plymouth Arcologies are primarily supported to support heavy industries, as witness Greenland Motors, maker of the Narwhal 3000. This might not be such a good choice if you're overly concerned about pollution. Cost $100,000 and can attract up to 55,000 residents. Forest arcologies are named for their attractive forest setting on the top level. Throughout the structure, citizens utilize recycling, operate ecologically sound industries, and maintain a rich verbal heritage that replaces television and radio. Unfortunately, the youth of Forest Arcos are bored silly and roam out into your cities, where they stare mindlessly at soap operas and sports programs displayed in the electronics department at local malls. Building a forest arcology costs $120,000 and can attract up to 30,000 residents. The Darko is slang for de-urbanized archaeological construct, originally designed by the twisted genius of Dante Mikhailov. Man, that's like 3 different ethnicities, all crammed into one name, or linguistic traditions, I should say. The artist/architect proclaimed it a reactionary response to the rigid archetypal arcologies of his day. No one really knows what this means, and many engineers are frankly baffled at how the thing stays standing. Inside, the ill-lit corridors twist into odd meandering corkscrews that mysteriously turn back on themselves. There are rumors that a strange subspecies of man inhabits the air ducts. Darkos cost $150,000 and can attract up to 45,000 brave souls. That is straight out of old Doctor Who. Lastly, we have the launch arcologies, nicknamed for their resemblance to modern orbital launchers. The resemblance is not entirely coincidental, as sophisticated methods of biological support were necessary to oxygenate and feed the thousands of inhabitants. While never tested, the manufacturers claimed the occupants could stay self-contained for up to 2 decades. The sides of the arcology are equipped with vernier jets to stabilize the structure during storms and earthquakes. A small nuclear facility independently powers the building. Spare energy is stored by electrolyzing water into 2 tanks for oxygen and hydrogen. The launch arco is the largest, costing $200,000 and holding 65,000 inhabitants. Build enough of these, and you may discover the final secret of Sim Earth, which I think is a typo. I genuinely think that it's supposed to be SimCity, and that this has nothing to do with Sim Earth, but for some reason the verbiage is wrong. So, time to change the budget. And what we're going to do is set that at 9. We're actually going to bump up the tax rate a little bit for all of that. And dramatically increase our tax revenue as well. We're going to set auto budget, and we are going to set very fast. We're going to go to African swallow speed. In order to make money, essentially. That can go up, that can go down, that can also go down. And that is going to make us money hand over fist. For a little bit, anyway. You can just watch the houses on that ridge get evacuated in real time. It's weird. Also, that boat down at the bottom is kind of spazzing out a little bit. Alright, so we actually now have enough money for a launch arcology, and we are going to place it where? They are absolutely huge, these things. So we need to place it carefully. 4x4, so we can actually put it up on this ridge and make those people who keep moving out of these houses feel bad about themselves. Launch Arco! At long last, an arcology. Which is actually, I think, the very first one that I've ever placed. Legitimately, at least. It's got a little red light. It's cute. Capacity, 65,000. There's a lot of people. Conditions, A+. Auto budget again and set it to African swallow speed. And then just sort of periodically check in with the Arco. 1,401. Oh, crud! Whoa, 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 whoa. Just saw a plane slam into the wall. It's paused. Well, that was exciting. Crash kisses llama. Grand Llama. Well. The Grand Llama is missing. You guys, the Grand Llama is missing. How frightening. Well, that sucked. Oh no, that was RoboCop. It ran into RoboCop. How sad. Wait, has that been like that this whole time? Oh, don't you even. Jeez. How's the arc go? It's filling up acceptably. Let's see. Hmm. 5,000. Give it about another 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll start messing around with the funding sliders and see what torment we can inflict. Oh, we should rename this back to RoboCop, shouldn't we? Robot Cop. RoboCop. That's the one. And we also lost a sign over here for some reason. Are there any other signs? I think we're okay. Oh, crap! Well, we actually got the monster. And he seems to be setting things on fire really, really rapidly. Oh my gosh. No, not the stadium. Frick. I don't know if this is true, but I recall hearing something about the monster being summoned, or well, just appearing naturally, has a different effect than if you summon it through the menu. Ah! Newspaper. Alien probe lands. An alien device crushed Twitchton, causing an estimated $38 million in damage and destroying parts of the apartment complex. The apartment complex, the only one. The device, scientists think, was not intended to harm humans or property, but was just an information-gathering attempt by aliens. Just as we're curious about life in outer space, life out there is interested in us, remarked a really horrible spokesperson for Hussein Institute. Although most citizens who witnessed the foreign object smashing building after building was terrorized, one boy enjoyed the excitement, saying, "Mom, is that computer-generated too?" Okay. Okay. The newspaper is on strike .65. That doesn't seem right. String not found much? Alright, well, let's get ourselves picked up from the latest disaster. Zzz. Zzz. Well, there's a little bit of light industrial over here. I can replace that. Not sure if I care to, though. This is not powered. Let's check in on the Llama Dome. Weirdly, that has barely changed since the last time we looked at it. The cricket tarantulas, Twitchton cricket tarantulas, have gone 31-9 in their latest season. The approval rating is at 75%. We have 16 tiles of arcology, 0%. Yikes. Okay, I think that's all good. Launch arcology. Whoa. Alright, so we're in the multiple tens of thousands here. Condition D+. We should name this, but I don't know what to name it. The good ship Lollipop. That's what it'll be. People can now live in the good ship Lollipop. How did I get... Yeah, that. It's like there's one tile... Not watered? Are you kidding? It is too watered. What the heck? Lying to me. Although we are actually having a water shortage. Oh no! Again! Again with this! Again with this! There were some spots somewhere that I had sort of reserved for this. It's already attached. It's not going to do much, but it'll keep us a little bit. D-zone that so that none of it tries to start rebuilding while I'm doing this. And then it's all going to be water pumps. Here a pump, there a pump, everywhere a pump, pump. The comical overabundance of these things, and yet we're probably still going to deal with semi-frequent, the ones that are just pumping groundwater, water shortages is what I was about to say. The ones that only pump groundwater get much, much, much less, which is a shame. But it does admittedly make more sense than if it worked like that. Alright, so we actually have enough money for another launch arcology. And then once that's placed, well, let's not do that until we know where we're putting it and have cleared the space. Anybody got any preferences about where this thing sits? Or about what to name it? Okay. I'm thinking maybe we just hollow out a section of Buzzcut Peak, like just right here. Possibly over here, just flatten out this and put it there. Or we could cut this side down and put it way, way down there. I mean, this really is the only place we can put it that isn't going to disrupt something else. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of putting it down here. You know what I'm gonna do? Let's be a little bit sneaky and put it... Oh. I'm gonna put it there. And then we're going to use the space behind it for more civic buildings, more civic services. We're gonna make sure to run the road up to them so that they work. I doubt that that road tile is necessary at all, actually. But it's still gonna live there. Need a name for this beastie. People are starting to move in. More random explosion noises. This is normal at this point, even though I still hate it. The good ship Lollipop is still in decent condition and is growing at a decent rate as well. Oh my! Oh. We have not saved in a long time. Crap. Well, I think possibly that may have just ended Twitchton. Crap. Okay. Well, there's nothing to do for that right now. Let me just see if the city... How long ago we saved that. Oh, no! Okay, I deserve that. Okay, okay. Well, alright, I guess that's the end of that then. So since we were just about done with Twitchton, what we're going to be doing tomorrow is, I'm going to leave that partially up to the community. Either we can start a new SimCity map. We're going to use completely different parameters. We might do like islands, we might do a bit more like plains so that we can play around with more of a fast-growing city. You know, maybe start with an easy map, but start with medium or hard starting conditions. We might not play SimCity at all, as a matter of fact. We might be playing one of these. So we might do some Spin Doctor, if it works. All of these are presupposed to be functional. Might play Odell Down Under, just to be fun, I guess. Museum Madness, probably not, because that game is very, very slow-paced. We might play some old Ambrosia games, of which I have the installers for a bunch. These are, of course, all shareware. Some of them are in more complete condition than others. So some of them have, you know, just shareware notices, and some of them are like proper. They will prevent you from playing further. So, for example, Avara works completely fine, but is not super great as a one-player game. I believe Ares just ends after a certain number of levels. Perrin, Barrack, Shirol, Escape Velocity, Cythera, Maelstrom, and I think Swoop and Mars Rising as well, all have basically the full game as shareware, so we can play all the way through those if we want to. Bubble Trouble, Escape Velocity, well, Frazzle's Wand, Bubble Trouble, Harry the Handsome Executive, and Slytherins all I know have a hard lock, so they will just stop you from playing after a certain point. And then Escape Velocity Override, I think, just nags you a bunch. So those are all options. We can also poke at Dino Park Tycoon a little bit. I ran a park that I feel like pretty well completes that game. Like I'm comfortable saying that I've mastered it, or had mastered it as of the last time I played. I've probably forgotten everything that I knew at this point. So yeah, old Mac games. If anybody has a request, I can try and hunt something down and get it working. Wacky Jacks, for example, I know does not work properly when emulated, which is unfortunate because it's very silly. It would probably be good for a stream, maybe two. However, aside from old Mac games, we do have one other option. Well, I mean, we have a crap load of other options. One option that we have is Open RCT2, which is Roller Coaster Tycoon. We can also do Open TTD, Transport Tycoon Deluxe. Both of those are by the same guy originally, and both of them are very, very, very good. They both have very rich multiplayer modes, so if we wanted to do like a community game where people can join in and sort of contribute while we stream, that would be a fun thing, I think. It's obviously the stream is very, very small, so I don't think that would garner very much attention, at least at the beginning, but it's something that we could look into, particularly if the handful of viewers that we have do decide to spread this around, then maybe we could get a player base up. We could run Factorio. I'm not sure how well that'll stream on my particular setup because my computer's a bit old, but it is something that we can look at. I realize Factorio is somewhat passé these days, since it's been out in something close to its current condition for quite a while. But it is still a very, very lovely game. So yeah, I think those are kind of my short list. Old Mac games, Factorio, OpenTTD, OpenRCT2. Those are pretty much my short list of options for this stream. So I will be posting to Twitter about that and just asking the community sort of what we want. In the meantime, though, concludes our stream for the night, and have a great evening, everybody.